Sitting at a desk is the absolute worst thing that you can do for your running. And in this video, I'll share my strategies that I use to counteract its toxic effects on performance to help you to avoid injuries and chase those new PBs. It's time to get out of that chair and have a desk job detox, including me. Now, I'm a physio, so I see so many people throughout the week who have thousands of different problems related to them sitting for 40 hours a week, plus whatever else they do on the weekend, like scrolling TikTok and stuff like that. And I've even seen athletes with these same issues when trying to balance lots of training and full-time work. And I never understood it. I always thought, why don't you just move more? Pretty simple, right? And then I made the worst decision of my life. I started a YouTube channel. I'm joking, it was the best decision ever, but it completely changed how much sitting I was doing each week. Scripting, editing, answering comments, looking for cool songs that I like for my next video. So much sitting. So much sitting. So much sitting. It almost drove me mad. So I started to experiment on myself to find ways of reducing this stiffness and soreness throughout the day so that I could keep myself ready to run at any point. Now later in the video, I'll give you my exact mobility routine that got me to boost my performance and keep myself running really hard. But first, how mobile do we actually need to be a good runner? And is your performance already been limited by this prolonged sitting? Now to explain this, here we have a completely average human body. I'm an athlete too. To explain this, here we have an athlete. Let's imagine that we draw a line directly through his body. This line represents where these many body landmarks should be in line with when we are perfectly balanced. Now imagine that we spend a lot of time in front of this line. For example, when we are sitting for 40 hours a week at our job or editing videos. And so it's probably pretty likely that you're spending a lot more time like this than in the opposite direction, which means that your tissues in your body are probably going to adapt to this over time. Running is actually the complete opposite posture. As you can see, even though we would be in front of this line from leaning, all of the joints are actually moving in the opposite direction. Our shoulders are back, our head is up tall, and we have nice extension through our spine and our hips. So here are the biggest problem areas that I've had sitting for a long period of time during the week. My thoracic spine and my hips.
Your back is broken. What, a vertebrae?
Firstly, your thoracic spine. Your rib cage has lots of important stuff in it, but for us, most importantly, your heart and your lungs. When your lungs expand as we breathe in, our chest also expands and our diaphragm actually descends into our abdomen. Your body needs to create space to pull that oxygen in. And so our ribs push away from our body and our lungs descend downwards. I broke my rib probably 5 months ago and I was absolutely shocked at how much this ruined my running because I was no longer able to expand my chest when breathing in because it was so painful. So I couldn't get a full breath. And of course my running absolutely suffered during this time. So it's super important and don't break your ribs like I did. Now imagine that we were in that classic flex posture when trying to run. We are basically reducing the space in which our lungs and our rib cage can actually expand into to create this breathing in. And this is absolutely going to impact your running. Now to explain this second problem area, we have to have a bit of a physics lesson. For us to go forwards, we need an opposing force pushing backwards. So when we push off the ground, we are getting the force pushing us up as well as force pushing us along. Not having enough extension in your hips to facilitate this will be like trying to throw a ball, but not being able to fully straighten your elbow. It just wouldn't be as powerful. All right. Enough physics. We need to be able to extend our hips to be able to run fast because the extension of our leg is what actually gives us that horizontal speed. And if we're sitting for a long period of time throughout the week, we're gonna start to lose this hip mobility. And this is the biggest difference between elite athletes and people like myself. Elite athletes just have way more hip mobility than us. And so it's pretty clear to me that the sitting and running activities are fighting for dominance in your body because we're sitting for a long period of time and then chucking on the shoes and going out for a big run. Sounds like a recipe for disaster to me. And this is absolutely where I've been breaking down in the past because I would find whenever I tried to up my mileage or my intensity, both of my hips and my upper back would start to just feel terrible, not ideal. Like imagine how my poor hip flexors felt after spending the whole day in a shortened position while I'm editing a video. And then I put my shoes on out of nowhere and start doing 400-meter repeats. So let's work through this together. How do we in fact know that we're not mobile? Are you sitting and watching this video? I knew it. Oh. I'm sitting too. All right, now this is where you can get involved in this video because I'm gonna show you my mobility screening process to check how limited or unlimited you are. We're not making that joke again. Starting at the bottom, it is really important that we have the full mobility of our feet and ankles. There are so many joints down there, but generally we want to be looking at our ankle dorsiflexion range of motion because this is impacted by our calf muscles. And here's what's interesting. Your gastrocnemius muscle actually attaches above your knee, which means that when you're sitting all day in that knee flex position, you're actually shortening your calf muscles too. which is not good. So here's how we know. We do a knee to wall test. The goal of this is to get the foot as far away from the wall as possible whilst keeping the heel on the ground. Then we can measure that distance, and a number above that 8 centimeter mark would be a great benchmark. All right, onto the knees. We will get ourselves lying on our back and put our leg into this 90-90 position, basically a right angle between the hip and the knee. Then we can try to straighten out this leg as best as we can whilst keeping that same hip position. A good value for this would be around 70 degrees. Now this is obviously a big key area that I can improve on, and it makes sense that my hips will be the first thing to break down in my body when I try to push it a little bit harder. So we can use this next test to measure the mobility of our hip dominant hamstring muscles with a straight leg raise. We would lie on our back with our other leg staying firmly on the ground. Then we raise our legs straight up, as the name suggests. Not really a complex one, this one. Anyways, we're aiming for around 60 degrees. Anything under that, and our mobility is probably impacting our running. Now, as I mentioned earlier, we need hip extension to be able to run fast, but hip extension is not always limited by things on the back. Usually it's been limited by things on the front, like the hip flexors. To check if this is an issue, we would do this test when lying on a bed or a bench like this. We want to let our leg hang in this position whilst holding our opposite leg to our chest. If the angle of the upper thigh is below the line of the body, then that's a pretty good marker. And if it's above, then this is probably an issue for you. Now for the next big one, the thoracic spine. We will be measuring not only the extension of our thoracic spine, but also our rotation. These ones are pretty easy to measure. All we do is put our hands out in front and we extend until we feel like our belly button starts to pop out, and that's because our lumbar spine will actually start to extend, and that's not what we want. A great number for this is 45 degrees. So if you are below this, it may mean that you need to do the mobility routine, which we're about to get into next. Okay, for the rotation, we're going to go into this lying position. Once again, put both hands in the air together and start to rotate until you feel that your rib cage starts to lift off the floor. Once again, 45 degrees or higher is pretty impressive. And if you're not getting the 45 degrees, you're probably going to need to do this mobility routine I'm about to show you next. Okay, here are the 6 mobility exercises that I'm doing every day to make sure I'm not developing mobility issues that will destroy my running. Now remember that this is to bridge the gap between sitting and running. So we want to make sure that we're working our way into everything slowly and not pushing it too much. The first one is a TFL stretch. This helps to open up our outer hip and core muscles that are often stiff from lots of sitting. So cross your legs, then take your arm over your head and lean away from your outer hip. Now the lunge. This one is great to help lengthen out those hip muscles that have been shortened all day, but don't push it too hard or you'll be stretching the hip capsule rather than the muscle around the hip, which kind of hurts. And in the same position, we can also stretch out our calves really quickly. This one feels pretty good. Then we can walk our front leg towards the same knee angle we found when checking our mobility. Hold it at this angle to open up our hamstring muscles. Remember, these muscles have been sat on all day, every day, so they absolutely are impacted heavily by being desk-based. Now, if we dial back this hamstring stretch a little bit, we can add in some thoracic mobility work, like what I'm doing here. I'm really focusing on trying to rotate as far as I can comfortably, but we also need to work on this thoracic extension to help with breathing whilst running. So here we go. We'll have our hands above our head and then we'll lift our rib cage off the ground. It doesn't have to be too far, and as you can see, I can't really get that far, but it's getting the job done. So there we have it, a routine that shouldn't take more than 5 minutes. It's gonna help you to bridge that gap between sitting at a desk and getting out and ripping a really hard running session. And this is especially important for people like myself who like to run later in the day when they've already been sitting around all the time. So make sure you start doing it. Bonus round. Here are a couple of things that you can do at your work desk to keep yourself mobile throughout the day. Remember that we're trying to have a balanced posture throughout the day. So any way that we can break up our sitting, the better. Plus it only takes about 30 seconds. Now, if you want to continue getting faster, you'll need to be doing these throughout the day to keep yourself limber so that you're ready to go home and smash a big VO2 max session. Okay, now that you're all mobile, it's time to work on that strength so that we can run way faster. So I'll leave you with my identical twin brother, Connor. See you in the next one.
One day,